the whole for the City of Highland Park, Illinois City Council, April 24th, 2024. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Ross. Here. Councilmember Vogler. Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littleworth.
Here.
Councilmember Stone. Here. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Mayor Rotary.
Here, we have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular committee of the whole meeting, April 10, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. First item, yeehaw, the lot. Let's go.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce and welcome Diane Larson. Makes her way up. Diane joined us this year as our new marketing coordinator. And also with us is Erin Jason, one of our assistant city managers. Erin serves as a department director for administration, what we call CMO, City Manager's Office. So we have two presentations this evening for your information and feedback. The first one pertains to the proposed plans that are already underway for the lot in downtown or uptown Highland Park. And so Diane is going to walk through what is planned, some brief history about the lot, and then we will talk about next steps. And I know certainly the Mayor and Council are well aware of the significant work that had been undertaken as we evaluate the long-term possible plans for the lot. That presentation and that policy feedback is not scheduled this evening. So this evening we really just want to focus on the 2024 plans, share with you the information that we have planned, and really with emphasis and great appreciation for the public feedback, for feedback from our businesses that have participated, as well as businesses in the area, certainly our BDAG members, as well as the Mayor and City Council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Diane.
Thank you, Gita. All right, so as mentioned, I am Diane Larson. I am the city's new marketing coordinator. I came on board in November, and there has been a lot to learn, but I am very excited about this community and all of the good things happening, and I am very excited also to be a part of that. So we'll get started with the lot. So before we talk about this year's plans for the lot, let's go over a little bit of background on the lot. So first and foremost, what is the lot's purpose? We broke it down to a couple of different points. One, community vibrancy. We want to ensure that Highland Park is an exciting place for people to be and to want to visit. We want to provide exposure to new markets within Highland Park as a new market for people. So give people a reason to visit Highland Park and see what they're missing. We also want to reintroduce our own residents to all of the great things that Highland Park has to offer. We have an emphasis on placemaking. So that is a business development best practice, and it entails local communities localizing their assets to promote vitality and quality of life for their residents. We want to, hand in hand with that, enhance the quality of life. So we want to give our residents experiences that they can share with their family, their friends, their neighbors in a safe place, create memories, and not have to travel outside their own backyards for that. We want to increase the foot traffic to the eastern portion of downtown or uptown Highland Park, and we want to promote our local businesses. So, with that in mind, how did the lot come about? So it was part of the 2022 to 2024 Business Development Strategic Plan. This was conceptualized in 2021. Consistent feedback from stakeholders in our community. That includes residents, business owners, commercial property owners, and others, including elected officials. Consistent feedback reflected the need to have large-scale events for people downtown, with that emphasis, as I mentioned, on placemaking. So the city in 2021 reviewed assets in the central business district, and they needed to meet certain criteria. They needed to be large enough to accommodate crowds. They needed to have easy access for entertainment and for vendors. And we wanted something on the eastern side of the railroad tracks, as Port Clinton is on the western side. The lot, it was determined, was the best. The St. John's lot on Central was the best candidate for that. So programming began in 2022, and since 2022, we have had approximately 50,000 attendees attend programming at the lot. All right. So last background slide, I promise. Ahead of 2024, staff met with more stakeholders. So again, this is residents, this is the general public, these are vendors, local businesses, and elected officials to get feedback and determine a best course of action for 2024 at the lot. We used this feedback to develop the plan that I'm going to present to you now. So we developed these 5 parameters when we were coming up with programming for the lot this year. We wanted to focus on event dates and times, entertainment, the inclusion of local arts groups, business interaction, and marketing and reach. So we'll start off with, well, at first, before I do that, this is our, hopefully you are all familiar with what's happening at the lot this year, but this is our season lineup. So I'll leave that up for just a moment. Pick out your favorite event that we're gonna have. I will be at all of them. I hope they all are equally interesting to all of you. All right, so we're gonna start off with our date and time. So when we looked at dates and times for 2024, we identified 5 main components that needed to be taken into consideration when planning a successful event. We looked at past attendance, feedback from vendors and business outreach, temperature, the noise, and cross-promotion opportunities. So past attendance. What did attendance look like in 2022 and 2023? What days of the week were most popular and what times of day were most popular? And did other events outside of the community impact attendance? And we found that yes, specifically the drop-off and pickup dates for summer camp, that had a negative impact on our attendance. So when we were planning these events, we specifically avoided those camp weekends. Additionally, we didn't want to compete with neighboring communities' events held on the same day and the same time. We wanted to make sure that we drew in crowds to Highland Park, and we kept them in Highland Park. We also wanted to ensure that dates we chose would work for our local business partners. A couple of our events, which I'll go into detail on in a minute, have business participation as a key integral factor in that event, and it would not be a successful event without that business interaction. So that leads me into decades. This is an event that was originally planned for July. We found out that it was also scheduled for the same date as Highwood Days. So we didn't want to compete with that. We looked at other dates in July. We ran into issues with camp attendance. Then we thought, well, maybe the same weekend as the Chamber's sidewalk sale, we could cross-promote each other, but feedback from businesses was we are too busy with the sidewalk sale to participate in these interactive campaigns that we have going on. Ultimately, we decided to move decades to September and not hold an event in July at the lot, a major event in July at the lot, which I will come back to in just a moment. Second point we talked about we considered with date and time was feedback from vendors, businesses, and the public. Oh, okay, we're back. Specifically in reference to the Taste of Highland Park, we had strong feedback that people wanted a dinner time event. So that is why this year, instead of doing 10 to 12 12 to 10, we're not going from 10 a.m. to noon or to midnight. From 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the lot. Instead of that, we're doing 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. This reduction in hours also allows us to allocate more funds towards entertainment, which again, we'll get to in a moment. The Vintage Car Show, we're holding that event on a Sunday this year instead of traditionally on a Saturday. That was for a couple of different reasons, but one is in response from local businesses who wanted to see the effects of the lot on the Central Business District on a day other than a Saturday or a Friday. Next is temperature. As you know, it gets very warm in July and August. I come from Florida. It gets much hotter there, but it's still really warm here. And especially when you're in the lot when there is no natural shading. That was another consideration we took to mind when we were planning to move, whether we should move decades or keep it in July. With the exception of the Vintage Car Show, our daytime events are happening in September or October. And I know it's still warm, but it is not as warm as July or August. So we wanted those events that have a daytime component. We don't care about people's safety. We don't want them getting heat stroke. We also want them to be comfortable and to stay at the lot long term. We don't want them to show up for 5 minutes, say it's too warm, and then leave. We want them to stay and then explore downtown as well. Noise. So the Vintage Car Show, I'm sorry, not the Vintage, based on feedback from 2023, Bitter Jester, we decided to separate that event out from the Taste of Highland Park weekend. That helps us kind of reduce a full 3 days of noise to the surrounding residents, surrounding neighbors. Moving that to its own weekend and specifically not a Sunday, we're hoping to minimize that impact of noise. They are also moving their times from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., so it will not be first thing in the morning band checks. So that was another consideration we took into place when planning these dates and times. And lastly is the cross-promotion aspect of it. The Vintage Car Show has traditionally been a very family-friendly oriented event. So we felt that this would be a great opportunity to help promote the French Market. So by holding the Vintage Car Show and our August 11th Vintage Market, or I'm sorry, our French Market simultaneously, we're able to cross-promote these events and introduce these two audiences to events they might not have otherwise had exposure to. Right.
Wait till the whole presentation. Yeah, I'm taking notes of my questions, so if you guys could do the same, that'd be great. Thanks.
So our next parameter we looked at was entertainment. So we based the type of entertainment we wanted on feedback from council and from the public. So this year we worked really hard to obtain more desirable entertainment, and I am very excited to announce that we have 3 headliners for the Taste of Highland Park that we feel are going to resonate with a large audience and have a broad reach. So those are Spin Doctors, Dishwalla, and 9 Days. So if you are older like me and remember the 90s, you will know who those bands are. And we are very excited. We've already had really, really good feedback from the media. And they're very excited. They want more information, and we think it's going to bring a lot of people to town, and we're very excited for it. The Vintage Car Show. Traditionally, we would have had a band. We did last year, but since we're holding this in tandem with the French Market, we didn't want to have a band detract from the ambiance of the market. So we are bringing in XLC 102.3, which is a local variety radio station. They will broadcast from the event. So they will be there at the lot broadcasting from the French Market and the Vintage Car Show. So this also helps us reach new audiences. We included in our package with XLC, we have 4 on-air spots that we get in the weeks leading up to the car show. So their reach is from Chicagoland area into southern Wisconsin. So we're hoping to draw in from a large crowd. Inclusion of local arts groups. So we realize the importance and we place a lot of value on including our local arts groups in events at the lot. Unfortunately, in 2023, we were not able to include Uptown Music Theater based on timing. But this year, we worked really hard to make sure we could incorporate them into one of our events, and it worked out the best that they are going to open for us Saturday night at the Taste of Highland Park with selections for their upcoming July performance of Les Miserables. So we are very excited for that. They are very excited for that, and we think it's a really great way to showcase some of these great arts groups that are here in Highland Park to a large audience, specifically people who are coming from out of town. We'll want them to think of Highland Park as a community that supports and promotes the arts and has a vibrant arts culture. Other ways we're supporting the arts this year, Soul to Soul is doing a special dance routine at Decades. So think dance moves from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Personally, I hope to see some break dancing. I think that would be really cool to watch. And we have continued our partnership with the Bitter Jester Foundation for the Arts. We are hosting them again this year at the lot, and we have included them in all of our marketing materials. So while this is not a lot-specific event, it is a city-sponsored event, and we have included them in our lineup. I just want to also mention that we are working with other arts groups, such as the Art Center, to provide programming and other interactive ways for them to participate at lot events. And I believe we have another theater group, a children's theater group here in town that we are in preliminary talks with about how they can also participate at the lot. Business interaction. So this one was really important for us too in 2024. And we have 3 specific events businesses can participate in all events through a couple of different modalities. But these 3 events, and specifically Decades and Scarecrow Fest, feature heavily with local business interaction. So briefly, for Decades, we have a local business starting point, and that will be Rock and Rags. Participants 18 plus will head to Rock and Rags, pick up a bingo card, and then they will need to visit 7 different stores, get a little Decades of Music stamp on their card. Once they reach 7, they bring that card back to the lot and they exchange it for a food voucher. So you'll get a discount on your food from a lot food vendor. You'll also be entered into a drawing to win a basket filled with good stuff from local lot vendors as well. Crucially, people are getting inside stores as part of this plan. You have to physically enter a store to get a stamp. We've worked with the businesses on developing this plan. They're excited, they are happy, they want people in their stores. We decided to do this 18 plus because we want people who can actually purchase things in the stores to be visiting the stores. So not that children can't participate, but it is geared more towards adults who have the capacity to make those kinds of purchases. We also have another trail with Scarecrow Fest and Walk, and this will be an interactive trail throughout the Central Business District. We have 30 donated Scarecrow forms and bales of hay for each. So businesses can reach out to us and request a Scarecrow form and hay. They will decorate their Scarecrow themed as their business or whatever they want. And opening night is Scarecrow Fest at the lot. So that is October 19th. People go through, they vote for their best in show. The winner gets a nice award they can either hang in their window or pin on their Scarecrow. But it doesn't end there. So while the voting happens at the lot, the Scarecrow Trail will stay up for a to-be-determined amount of time, which staff will then market to the greater community as a whole as a destination attraction. And then lastly, the French Market. This was the case last year, but we didn't publicize this enough to our local businesses. So we have made a concerted effort this year to make sure local businesses are aware that they have several avenues with the French Market to participate. And there's several different tiers. Some of them are at no cost. So we're making sure they have that information as well. So if they want to participate, they can. Marketing and reach. So we have a lot of different tactics we're trying this year. We're continuing some from the past. One of the new things we're doing this year is we are rebranding what was the artisan market to the French Market. So a lot of people, we gleaned this from feedback. People didn't know what an artisan market was, but people do know what a French market is. Specifically, they associate French market with the big French market that happens in Wilmette. But this rebrand is not just about renaming the market. We are also going to be enhancing the ambiance of the market. So that includes placing more tables, having, so if you get food, then you can actually eat it there and you don't have to wander off and sit on the curb. You'll have a place to eat and enjoy your meal while, your wife or whoever goes shopping and you can eat and be happy. We also are going to ensure, working with Bensadoon, to ensure that the vendors we have are consistent and that they are of interest to the community. We have a digital marketing plan. So this includes social media, Facebook and Instagram. And what I want to highlight about this specifically is something we're doing called dark ads. Now that sounds really scary, but it's not. Dark ads just means ads that are not posted on a profile page. They run in the background. They are paid, but you can target them to specific demographics. And they have been really successful so far. We launched 4 dark ads specifically for the Taste on April 19th on Friday. And when I checked the stats at 5 p.m., we were already at 41,000 impressions, which is really good. We are using influencers and cross promotion this year. So influencers like the North Shore Moms, Chicago North Shore Moms Network, our Taste of Highland Park is being cross-promoted by the talent agencies and managers for our 3 headliners. And also the radio station is going to help cross-promote for us. We have our top picks of DJs for that will be there. We've got print advertisements and editorials in North Shore Weekend, Sheridan Road, Highland Park Neighbors, and Discover HP, that is the Chamber magazine. We are also continuing our partnership with Visit Lake County, so they will be highlighting on their website, on blog posts, and on their social media events happening at the lot this year. And then lastly, we're going to talk about our financial impact. So here is a breakdown of our current and projected expenses for 2024. The event marketing and retainer, that is what we pay our managing company to produce these events. It's $62,500. Entertainment is $155,200. Marketing, and this is marketing actuals, not the, it's separate from the marketing retainer. So think things like ad costs or social media marketing company fees. Banners, that includes, that is a form of advertising. So this includes costs for creative and actual manufacturing of the banners. That is $84,799. Security costs are $32,050, and infrastructure costs are $121,935. So to help offset this, we have several different revenue streams that we try to bring in. Currently, we have $53,650 in sponsorships to date, with another $18,000 in the works. We have $13,805 in vendor fees so far, and we expect that to increase. And we have 2 grant applications in process, one for $244,000 and the other for $20,000. And we should be hearing on those before too long, whether or not we have received all or partial matches on those. And that's all I have for the lot, and I would be happy to help answer any questions if you have any.
Super. Thank you so much, Diane. This has shown a lot of thought and a lot of work by you and the team, and I just really appreciate the presentation. Very, very exciting. I do have a couple of questions,
Okay.
and I know several around the table do as well. We had talked about, and maybe I'm not in the correct bucket of discussion, because I appreciate that this is sort of the season's announcement. But we talked about the entrance, we had talked about the landscaping, we had talked about making it more findable and more accessible. Is that on the plans for this year, or are we looking at it for next year?
Well, we had discussed a couple of different ways to help make the lot more visible. One of the things that we had received feedback on were those hedges along St. John's, that it's very difficult to see into the lot, especially during the market. So whether that was the artisan market or looking forward to 2024, the French market. Unfortunately, we cannot take those out for 2024, but we are looking into different types of banners to put up to signal this is where the lot is. So we will have our same street pole banners. 2022 and 2023, they were just the lot, but because we're trying to really promote that French market, they will alternate the lot and the French market banners right there on St. John's. We also have bigger horizontal type banners that will go in between those metal posts. Mm-hmm. Now those were a bit of a problem last year because they were vinyl and they kept ripping and they had to keep coming down. We are using a different material this year, a mesh material, so it should be a little bit more sturdy. It's a little bit of a higher price point than a vinyl banner, but you actually save money because you're not replacing it every 5 minutes. So we're trying to make it look a little bit more welcoming. We're also allocated some more funds for decor. So specifically lighting. We want to try to make those bushes camouflaged. So we're looking into solar powered net lighting. So think like holiday lights that we can place over those to kind of guide people in the evenings for those nighttime events. We've also got more decor planned for inside the lot once you get there to make it not look so much like a parking lot.
And Mayor, I'll just add, just to add on to Diane's comment. So what we were looking at for this year were those initiatives that are really high impact but reasonable priced, as opposed to major infrastructure changes. Until we get that policy feedback from the council on long-term plans, we didn't want to make significant infrastructure changes like taking out all those bushes and looking at a new landscape plan or the surface of the parking lot, things of that nature. So we believe these are high impact. They will make a difference to our objectives, but again, reasonably priced.
And so another question I have is that it's sort of hard to find the entrance. I know, with the stage sort of right behind the memorial, given our desire to increase foot traffic and all of that, are we still having the same entrance and are we still having that same challenge in terms of, sorry, good luck, finding the entrance and, it's not really having much of an impact on foot traffic. When we saw from the Port Clinton Art Show, how few people ended up at the artisan market, and at first there was a concern, oh my God, you're cannibalizing my event, and then I think 21 people ended up going to the artisan market. We're sort of missing that opportunity. So are there any steps this year to improve that accessibility in both directions, or is that part of the infrastructure question that you guys are looking at?
So there's nothing construction-wise or permanent-wise that we are able to do this year, but we do have some temporary solutions. And one of those is we are moving our info tent, so it's easily seen where people know where to walk in. That info tent will be right there. We also, for a couple of different events, vintage car, it's side by side with the artisan market, so we're able to kind of guide people in that way. And the taste, we're shutting down St. John's, so we will have extra staff on site to help guide people. So, clearly marked people. We are making additional signage this year to show where those entrances are. Want more lighting this year to kind of emphasize those entry points. And we also hope to include in our communications visuals where you can enter, parking locations, things like that, so it's easy for somebody. I know for me, if I want to go somewhere, I look at the parking situation ahead of time. We want to make sure that's not a stressor for people as well. They know how to navigate, whether on foot or by vehicle.
Okay, and then did I hear correctly that we're essentially dark in July? Is that
Yes,
the whole
so
thing is...
initially when we first did the schedule for the lot, we had an event every month.
Okay.
However, our July event, Decades, we really took a long time to debate whether or not we wanted to have that event in July or if we wanted to move it to a different month. And ultimately, we decided that it was better to have events not every month if we could guarantee high attendance versus having an event in July, but it was going to be low attendance.
So there will be a French market, but there
Yes.
won't be an event.
Absolutely, yes.
All
We are
right.
having French markets all throughout July, and that factored into our decision to move Decades from July into September.
Gotcha.
So we also factored into consideration that Bitter Jester is not a part of the Taste Weekend this year. So you have an extra week, that 1 week fewer between major events.
Oh,
And then
okay.
the city is also doing our 4th of July event this year. So while that's not a lot event, it is something with a downtown
It's a
component
community
happening.
event, and, okay. Yay for the spin doctors, can't wait. You'll see who's dancing harder to two princes. All right, and then, are we doing drones, or is that not part of this conversation?
We haven't.
Okay, Aaron's like, no, we're not talking
yet.
about this,
So we're
okay.
gonna review the possibility of when we could do the drone show.
Gotcha. And then is there any way to assess the return on investment? And I appreciate that you've gotten corporate sponsors and are pursuing grants, but is there any way, any survey of the CBD businesses afterwards to kind of assess?
Yes. So
Are
we
you
have
seeing
two
an
different
impact?
modalities. So we
Okay.
have actual follow-up reports. So we have Ripple, and staff also does this. We follow up with our vendors, with the public, and with local businesses downtown.
Okay,
After the event, we do a post-event report where we get feedback from all of those people. That's modality 1. So we're getting statements and feedback directly from the source. This year, we also have Placer AI. So we can see how many people showed up, how long they stayed, where they went after they left the lot. Did they immediately go home, or did they spend some time in the central business district? Did they go elsewhere in Highland Park? So yes, we are going to be able to see this year how well we did on our return on investment.
awesome, thank you, yes.
And if I can just jump in.
Sure.
So one component of that, certainly, the business feedback is very important, as we all know, and I'm sure agree. But the other part of that is also the qualitative factor. And that's something where, for example, like what we've seen in the Ravinia district as a result of Food Truck Thursdays is brokers are now advertising Food Truck Thursdays as one of the reasons to move into the Ravinia district and move into Highland Park.
Great,
So that's something that you're not necessarily, a business may not be able to say, well, my business has increased by X%, but that's part of the qualitative factors where people are talking about Highland Park. People want to be in Highland Park, that we may not be able to have a quantitative factor to it.
gotcha, okay. Annette?
Great, well, yeah, this plays right off of what the mayor was asking you, because first of all, I am so impressed with your outreach in terms of grant funding and trying to buffer that cost to all of us. So I think that is wonderful, and as you heard from both the restaurateurs and the BDAG people, I think the social media has really improved, and that is really terrific. So those are my biggest kudos. I am extremely worried about not having enough July events. Your talk about buffering the French market in August is really late in the season. And I love the idea. I think you're right about the hours and the fact that many people, I mean, I was watching people wilt. You know, I was dancing in the afternoons, but people were wilting. So you're not wrong. But I think what you've done in terms of the timing for like a 5 p.m. event or even a 4 p.m. event is going to cure a lot of that. And so why not have things there that will help the French market? Because I have to tell you, I am the biggest supporter and proponent of this. I want this to succeed more than anything. I think it's dismal. It has been depressing.
The stuff on Sunday.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just, I mean, I ride my bike or go, I see Councilmember Tapia, we like pass like ships in the night. It's right by your house, Councilmember Stone. We all go over there and it is dismal. It either needs to be like, make the area smaller. So if you're talking about moving in, whether it's gates or whatever, in the entranceway, Mayor, I think that might be one way to help it. But you need to help that thing. And you need to help it with other events. And frankly, if people knew that Decades was on a July Saturday night, and they could go there and then they'd see all the promotion for the French market the next morning, I know that would impress me. And it really, I'm really upset that we have nothing really in July.
So
This is our big time.
we did consider moving the vintage car show from August to July.
Okay.
However, the car show, the people who put on the car show, so where we're getting all those cars from, they were not available at the dates in July.
Keep them in August.
So-
They're wonderful, and people love it. But I just think that is my biggest concern, because I want to see the French market succeed.
Yes,
And
agreed.
something, I think you're infusing so much energy and you're doing a lot of different creative things to do it. This thing needs more than a shot in the arm. It really does. And so I really would, I don't know if it's too late to change Decades or whatever, or get something in addition to it. It sounds like there will be help, whether it's from Bitter Jester or whatever, but it's really a problem. I do have to say, when people talk about Wilmette or Winnetka or different markets, the French market, formerly the artisanal market, really, it's not the same conversation. And we want to draw people and we want to bring them in. And if anything, I'm really glad you brought up Food Truck Thursdays, because to me, we've seen something really grow and become a tremendous success. So much so that, Gita, you're right, you know, others are promoting it for us. I think we need to do the same thing with the French market. So that would be my number one worry of caution. I think that was really my main point. I'm sorry, I keep losing power on that. Bitter Jester, great, and downright depressing, sorry. As far as infrastructure goes and landscape budget, the landscape budget seemed low, and the infrastructure seems a little high. And so I don't know what we're getting, and if it's not permanent, I'd really like to see enhanced beauty over there, because that's what people expect from Highland Park. So, and I think that'll add to the vibrancy, and I trust y'all, because you've done such a great job with social media, to translate into the lot. So,
Thank you. Yumi?
I hope that this is in some kind of decent order. I completely understand not removing the hedges yet, but surely they can be trimmed. You know, they're just tall, and there's nothing, you know, they should be lower and cleanly, you know, just cleaned up. Yeah, this is gonna be a little random. Why is the music geared, why does it skew older? we're kind of rejoicing in it being from the, 90s. I guess they should be looking in a different direction, but why wouldn't it be more current?
Well, there's a couple different reasons. A little bit less expensive to do somebody from the 90s versus somebody from today. We would not be able to afford, let's say, like a Taylor Swift, for example, which, I know that's an extreme, but the other consideration was our target demographic for these events. We want to reach people, adults and families, 30 to 50. And so this music group resonates with that target demographic. So those are the people with the most purchasing power, and it's also the largest demographic, and those are the people that are here year round. They're not snowbirds, so they come to Highland Park and they stay. They don't go to Florida or Arizona for the winter.
Yeah, I assumed that there was a economic, reason that it. But
If we
at
can
the
get
same
Taylor
time-
Swift next year, I would love to, but
I
Why not?
just wondered why, just to create a more sort of new vibe, to have something that's more current, in addition.
Can I just jump in
Yeah.
real quick? These are 3 headliners we're talking about, but we also have DJ Madrid back,
Yes, sir.
who skews all ages. We have a lot of other entertainment that hits other age points as well. These are the 3 headliners, so this is where the majority of our budget went, to the reasons that Diane mentioned. And for the hedges, please know that we have talked to the city forester, and he knows that it's on his list to chop those down as best we can
They'll
and still
be
keep them
groomed.
healthy. Yes.
Box looking, or box like, I guess I should go a little quickly. The French market, yeah, artisanal market, I mean, it was really dismal. I would use that word as well, it was dismal. Virtually nobody there. And have we considered a farmer's market in that location? Because, Evanston has obviously we have a farmer's market on Wednesdays, but I think for a lot of people in the middle of the day, that doesn't work. Evanston's is super popular, and it's on Saturdays. Some people have said to me that they just can't go because they're working. Somebody suggested to me a dog show or something. Yeah, might be
Bring my
working on
dog
that.
to
I don't
bed.
know. We have a huge number of dog owners in this city, and something related to dogs might be popular. I'm not sure what inspired the scarecrows, but I guess you will see how that goes. Would the city be interested in, there's some very successful markets out there, like the Randall Street Market in Chicago. The creator of it is a very old friend of mine. Well, I haven't seen her in a very long time, but it's very successful, and maybe, a known quantity like that. And I did want to ask about why, for the French market, what I noticed were that they were mostly outside vendors. And that seems to me inherently sort of problematic. It would be good to have really focused on our own businesses, because if you're bringing in these outside vendors, and it's not attracting a lot of people. Anyway, so that was my last question. I will add, and the city manager is aware that I have a lot of concerns about the lot concept. What I have heard in my own interactions with businesses is that it isn't drawing business to them, and I know you just gave a rationale for vibrancy of another kind, that people buy homes, but to me that is an important component, that we're helping local businesses. I've heard that they feel that it's driving traffic from them, not to them, and I would love to see them more involved in the planning around this. Thank you, that was it.
Great, thank you. Kim?
Thanks. Some of what I've got here has been said, so I'll try and skip ahead and limit it. So I'm assuming you've looked at the large Ravinia event weekends in figuring out
Yes.
scheduling, so we don't have conflicts there. The French market is on Saturday in Wilmette. Shops aren't open on Sunday mornings, so I'm not sure why we chose Sunday to do the French market. I agree with my colleagues that it is dismal. Andres and I seem to bump into each other there frequently and
That's the only
kind of shake our heads. So I hope we can reinvigorate that in some way, whether that be with some sort of event earlier in the season that's concurrent with it, or more outreach or something. This is almost a $500,000 budget for the lot, and we've got just over 10% of that covered with sponsorships. I know we're gonna keep looking for funding to cover more of it, and I'm glad to hear there's gonna be measurement of the impact on our businesses from these events. That's really, to me, very important, so that we can determine if this is something the city should spend so much time and money on. And if we determine that this is a benefit to our business community, it may be appropriate in the future to contract out to run these programs going forward. I don't think that event management is a core city responsibility.
Thanks. Andres?
Yeah, a few things here. Well, first of all, I just want to commend the team on a strategic approach. You looked at the risks, you looked at what worked, what didn't work, and it was multifaceted, right? In location, weather, time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just really commendable. A few things here. You talked about one of the objectives is to attract more public to the east part of Central, but why wouldn't we also say west?
That's my
Yeah.
point, so I'm gonna jump off. So the west side of the tracks is inherent. People come to downtown Highland Park, uptown, downtown. I'm a downtown sayer, so come to downtown Highland Park. It's inherent to be on the west side. Drawing people onto the east side is important also. So we do have, even though it's much smaller, you couldn't do some of the events we're doing at the lot at Port Clinton due to size. But there's other opportunities to do events at Port Clinton. I mean, we're already looking at that in our budget. But for the lot, it's really important to draw not only people off the train, but people to the east side to really appreciate that our downtown doesn't stop at the tracks.
Yeah, and so a suggestion, though, I get that, and I support that. But from a City of Highland Park messaging, just to distinguish the east side, when the lot is really to attract people to downtown.
Of
We
course.
know that it's gonna benefit the east side more, because they're gonna, not more, but it's just gonna pull an audience there, which is good, and that's our, almost like an internal strategy. But externally, I wouldn't want it to just say, that's one of the objectives, is to bring them downtown. So that's a thought there. The other is I understand the demographics. We know demographics get tricky. And these are pretty much bands that attract a white audience. So I know they're gonna be great for a lot of people here, but not for everybody. And getting a band that has a crossover appeal is difficult, so I get that. But I would encourage, and I haven't seen your list of other artists, so they might be there, to think about how do we, with Latinos and Eastern European, I mean, there's some significant multicultural audiences here, number one. And number two, teenagers, I'm just overall concerned that our teenagers just have very few options now to do things. And I know we're skewing for the spending public, but I think from a city vibrancy and an inclusion perspective, I think we should look at the lot. That yes, there's a primary business development aspect to it, but it's not the only objective, right? It's vibrancy. So I really want to see a plan, even for the summer, that even experiments, on how to reach the young people. I mean, I love DJ Madrid, but a lot of young people don't know even who he is, because he was hot, as a DJ, 20 plus years ago, and he still attracts quite the crowd. But I think let's work a little harder about how do we bring teenagers into this. Switching over to the French market, is there going to be food at the French market this time? Because we were kind of on and off a little bit about it. Can you elaborate on that?
So there will be food vendors there, so you can get food and eat
Awesome.
it there. So yes, there will be ready to eat food as well as your regular,
And more than
produce.
just
And
one.
I believe so.
Okay, that's an attraction, right?
So when you were all saying dismal around the table, I was nodding along with you because I also felt like every Sunday last summer it rained. I felt like every time I was at the artisan market, it was like rainy, dreary. We had a couple really rough start weekends and a lot of vendors dropped on us, and we've told Ben Sadoun, this is not acceptable for us.
Right.
We're really rebranding this as Diane discussed, not just by name, but the whole vibe of it. We want to recharge it.
Yeah, based on the ideas you're bringing up, there seems to be a lot of thought into, making them more multi-layered. A few other thoughts on that. Are we planning to we had the low-key music at the lot. Do we plan to still have some low-key music at the lot for the French market?
Yes, I believe they are bringing in, I don't know if they're working with Noah Plotkin to provide entertainment for that, but I believe they are.
Would be part of the ambiance.
Right, just not
Yes.
for the vintage car show. That's when the radio station will be there.
So I'm in the space. By the way, back to teenagers, they're also great influencers. So we could maybe tap into some teen influencers. So just out there. I really like the idea. I mean, I feel the gap in July is worrisome as well. I think the fact that to Annette's point that maybe moving the time later might address some of the heat issues. But maybe we need something a little bit more low key, especially at this time where you haven't contracted. But I love the dog show. I think that's fantastic.
Great idea.
That's a great idea. And the other idea that I really like that Lake Bluff does, they do a barbecue fest.
Mhm.
And a barbecue fest, I went over there and I just saw they were organized. And there's a lot, they go around, and you probably bumped into it yourself. But, it's not really expensive to pull off in the great scheme of things. And it's all about neighbors, right? Bringing in and showing off their barbecue. So I don't know if it's too late to try to pull it off this year or the dog show. But I think those are two really good local ideas, right? Bring your barbecue or the dog show, bring your dog or pet, whatever. And I think that could be a really nice way to do something in July at this late stage of the game. So just food for thought. And then on the financial side, I'm just curious about what, you're going after one really large grant, which, I hope we get it. What kind of grantor are we going after, and what are our chances of getting it?
So the larger grant is DCEO, the State Department of Economic Development and Commerce. We did receive funding dollars from them in 2022 when we applied that went back towards 2023 events. So we received funding that way. We feel confident that our application was all button tight, exactly what they wanted, and they felt confident when we submitted that we should potentially get a nice chunk of change from that.
Good,
Great,
thank you.
great. Any other follow-up? No? Okay, well,
Oldest in Golden get 3,000 dogs. Golden, Colorado has a golden retriever Sunday.
I saw
They
that.
get 3,000 dogs, and they're dog owners with credit
On
cards.
asphalt, maybe not so great for paws, but other than that, yes, Yumi.
I
knit.
have to say, and I'm glad that it met with a positive reception, the dog show, that, I'll just say it, a lot of knocking on doors, running for office. I was amazed at how many people, just
Of
barking,
dogs, right.
barking dogs. You heard it whether they were home or not. It was, everybody has a dog in the city.
There was a dog fest at Sunset Park, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, and it was all these vendors, and you brought your dogs, and it was a dog parade, and it was mobbed. It was a ton of fun, so, yes.
By the way, I'm afraid of dogs, so for the record, I'm not coming.
You would like a cat event.
I really want to be there, but I'm not coming.
I'm going to switch up the order so we can get to the considerations regarding the administration and enforcement of the city's ethics guidelines. So, is that Pete and Steve?
Yes, so included in the packet is a report. The report was drafted by Corporation Counsel as a follow-up to the last committee of the whole meeting. So we don't have a prepared presentation, but we thought we would do is just go through highlights of this memorandum, and then we're looking for your policy feedback.
On me?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you. No, the report is just an outline of the last meeting. The report is light. Out of sympathy, I had the appendix removed.
But,
Too soon?
that was really cringy.
Okay.
As a dad, I appreciate that.
I just thought of that
Did you think
during
of that all
the
week
discussion of the
long?
lot. But what the report does is reflect the conversation that we had following our presentation on April 10th. And this is evolving. I mean, even after we prepared it and put in writing what we believed was the, I don't want to say direction, I just want to say thoughts, maybe consensus of many of the city council members. Even I had further thoughts and concerns about some of my own recommendations or comments on this. Let me outline what's here at a very high level and then get into a second level of thought on this. We had discussed at the end of the last meeting having maybe two roles. One, we weren't fixed on the name in the report. I call it the ombudsperson. Please don't get fixed on that name. In fact, I'm suggesting we change it. But it would be sort of the first level. It would be more like an ethics advisor, which may even be the better name, which would be there to proactively advise, be there to be the shoulder to or the gut check for council members to determine whether they may have an ethics issue and to determine whether or not they should participate. Sometimes a need for immediate action. And it would also have the ability to issue advisory opinions. These wouldn't be binding opinions, so the person seeking the advice doesn't have to adhere to the advice. They can say, thank you, I'm going to go a different direction. Conversely, somebody else can say, I'm not happy with that advice, and I'd like to take it to a different level, which leads to the second layer that we don't currently have, and that's what I have defined and actually like the concept of an ethics enforcement officer. This is a third party that would have the authority to do investigations and actually conduct adjudications. They would be able to affix or impose fines or penalties and make findings and judgments. I put in here, because I thought it made sense, that if an elected official did seek the advice of that first ethics advisor, then the ethics officer would have to give weight, not wouldn't have to necessarily accept, but would give extra weight to the opinion of the ethics advisor. So ethics advisor, ethics enforcement officer, for purposes here. And the important part of this is elected officials in the first instance would have some cover. They would have the ability to have sought advice, and unlike what we have now, that advice would have some teeth, maybe baby teeth, but it would have some teeth. And then if there was a dispute, either by council members, we can talk about who could raise disputes, other members of the city staff, the members of the public, that's all up for discussion, could bring the matter to the ethics enforcement officer, and we'd actually have an ethics hearing. And we'd have a more formalized determination. It wouldn't be an ad hoc or an individualized determination that somebody is unethical or not. We'd have, and Councilmember Tapia really pressed on this and hit home what is current reality. We currently don't have anything other than our reliance on the voters. So we would have this second person. So that's the high-level outline of the two roles. In giving this thought, I think starting with the second role, that certainly should be a third party, somebody not at this table, not in this room. It should be somebody that is familiar with Highland Park. Perhaps I would advise be a resident of Highland Park, but not my office, not the city manager's office. You could consider perhaps having, a thought was raised, the administrative hearing officer have that role. If we do that, we're going to have to get to the decision that the manager's office and I have been sort of putting on the back burner, and that is we currently need a plan B for our hearing officer. In the event the hearing officer, just out of natural circumstances, has a conflict or an issue or an illness, we don't have a backup.
We previously had two.
We had to, we need to
For a
get
long
to,
time.
we need to get that back into place.
We do.
And that's in the works.
It's in the
We are
works.
looking
That's
for-
regardless of
It's
this,
in the
that's
works.
just
And-
for
and-
operational.
And perhaps
Right.
that second person can be a non-resident. So we have the hearing officer as a resident. If there's a conflict there, it can move to the non-resident. But the first one, the ethics advisor, I did give this some thought, and I want to put this on the table. I have found that the role that the manager or I play in discussing issues of conflict with members of the city council has an advantage. There's an advantage in that I have a familiarity, and I don't want to, I'm trying, and I shouldn't use the word, the corporation council, whoever that person may be, knows your laws, knows your procedures, knows your practices, knows your customs. And your corporation council, as you know, need not be a resident. I represent many towns. This is the only town I represent in which I am a resident. So it need not be a resident. But most important, the corporation council in that ethics advisor position has the benefit of attorney-client privilege. I can't tell you how many times I have been approached by a member of the city council with a highly confidential issue, saying, my company's about to merge, can I talk about this? My kid was arrested in this store, can I deal with that? My daughter is dating the applicant, a lot of different things. But they have comfort because they know that it's attorney-client privilege. Having a third party in that role may stifle and what we're looking for is candor. We're looking for having people come forward. And with the teeth that this now would have, with the ability to have the cover and also, importantly, the ability to challenge the corporation council's determination, it may make sense to have your corporation council, whoever that may be, serve as that first role. So that's where I want to sort of lay on the table this outline at this point.
Andres and then Tony.
Yeah, there's a legal process to this, and, I wanted to see it from a organization design way, because that's sort of my space. And, and I think this is an organization design challenge, right? So there's a few principles in doing organizational design, and then I'm going to react to what you're recommending through this lens, right? So principles would be, you want to design to the organizational needs and not to the incumbents, right? So
And not to the what?
incumbents.
Gotcha.
And in fact, you went ahead and said, oh, I should not say me, I should say corporation. So I think that's a good principle. We should use as much as we can from the structure that is working, right? We should not use structural changes to try to fix a performance issue. Somebody made a mistake or somebody didn't exert good judgment. Sometimes we see organizations say, oh, therefore we have to put this process in there to address that, when no, the process is fine. It's just that person made a right choice. This coach that person about what, or develop the skill there. And the fourth is to not overcomplicate, right? In the spirit of trying to really fix it, in chasing the perfection, if you will. So given that, my response would be, I really like having the advisor be corporation counsel for the reasons that Steve mentioned. And that way, we don't add another layer, another person, which only adds more complexity. Who is this person? What is their role? What is their relationship? How much they know about Highland Park or not? So it's just a more simple, and I think Corporation Counsel is counsel. They advise, and I like the concept of attorney-client privilege, et cetera. I like the idea or the suggestion that we have an ethics officer with that adjudication type of responsibility. And in the spirit of simplicity, and in the spirit of using what is already working, I think that our ethics, not ethics,
Administrative hearing officer.
administrative hearing officer, you know, good track record, it's a system that works. This is a form of adjudication, you know, has to do with us and ethics, but it kind of fits within that process. But I would agree that it's a distinct set of responsibilities that would have to be spelled out, and there would be a second role for that person, right? And I like the idea that the first line of defense, if you will, be a Highland Park resident with that 1 or 2 degrees of separation you described, for all the reasons that you said. But for the alternate, I would recommend that it be someone from not Highland Park, because that way we hedge our checks and balances expand, right? There's a higher chance that a resident may have a greater percentage of situations where there might be a conflict of interest because of relationships. So then our backup should be someone who would not run into conflict of interest based on relationships at Highland Park. So I like that. And there might be another reason for conflict of interest based on someone who lives here, that I think just by going outside and someone who actually knows us less, it's also another check and balance. You know, we benefit from someone who knows us better for the first line of defense, but at some point that might become a problem, that they know the city too well, and we need something more removed who can look at things more objectively. So those are my reactions.
So just to clarify, for the administrative hearing officer, you would want us to resort to the second person and have that second person be a non-resident to serve in the role as the ethics enforcement officer?
No.
Okay.
The administrative officer, the number one
First
person
line,
would be the first line
Right.
for ethics.
Corporation counsel. What am I not hearing?
Yeah. The
No,
first
no,
line
no, no,
he's
no.
saying is
No,
corporation.
let me see if I can explain it.
So the advisor.
There's 2 levels, as I've described it. Ethics advisor would be the corporation counsel.
Right.
Ethics hearing officer would go to the administrative hearing officer.
Right.
The administrative hearing officer would be composed of two individuals.
Right.
They both would be
Serve as the enforcement
serve
officer.
as the enforcer. If the first one had a conflict,
Oh, I see.
because that person is too close to, because that person would be a resident,
Right.
excuse me, would be a Highland Park resident, then we'd have to go to the second
Gotcha.
person, who would
Okay.
be a non-resident.
Yep, makes
We
total
have
sense.
a built-in conflict protection.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next person's Tony, then Yumi, then Kim,
So be calm,
then Annette.
but I'm going to agree with Andres. I like the 2-tier system. I like the ability to have confidential conversations with corporation counsel as a preliminary starting point. Most problems will be resolved there. I'm comfortable having the enforcement performed by our administrative hearing officer. We've usually had to, for a lot of the time that I've been here.
Right.
There hasn't been a distinction in terms of the hiring process as to whether it's been a Highland Park resident or not. It's an open position that we hire. And the city council has interviewed for that role. We lost one just through natural attrition that we haven't replaced. I'm not too concerned with whether the second administrative hearing officer is or isn't a Highland Park resident. I'm okay either way. I do think we need to have a backup. If the first person has a conflict because they're too close to the issue, it involves them in some way, there is another person. If it's not from Highland Park, I think that assures the second person likely does not have a conflict. But by having the administrative hearing officer in that role, you get, I think, a more consistent enforcement of the law.
Right.
This is a person who is enforcing the law against other residents who are not elected officials, who is going to be enforcing laws against elected officials, I think you get more even-handedness.
Thank you. Yumi?
I wanted to ask, the attorney-client privilege, wouldn't that extend to any attorney? It's only for a corporation counsel?
It would depend on what
I'm saying, I mean, this is the rationale that's been given for corporation counsel, which is you and your firm, was that safety mechanism of if we hired an attorney outside of corporation counsel, they would have that.
It would be
privilege.
there would be a question. It's a good question. There would be a question if that first role, the ethics advisor, were to be appointed by the city council in the role as an additional attorney of the city. And then that, we'd have to take steps to get to that point.
It wouldn't be an automatic if
I
that
don't-
person happened to be an attorney.
Yeah, but no,
But we could get there.
I think, I think you can get there. If that's your question, I
Yes.
think you can get there. If there was a challenge, and we'd be in a sort of a new area, because as I think you all know, I've indicated, I serve in this role in Evanston, and I'm careful to advise people that come to me that I am not the city's attorney. And so the attorney-client privilege that you enjoy as a city officer may or may not extend. The law has not been settled yet. I think that an argument could be made, Yumi, but it's not as safe and as certain.
Okay. And then the other, not question, but I think just point I'd like to make is I'm not personally comfortable with either of the hearing officers being Highland Park residents. I feel that there are a million different ways that a Highland Park resident would possibly know people involved and maybe have some kind of conflict themselves through their kids, through, relatives. Just that, to me, that makes it more complicated. I feel like it's safer to have that removed. And I think, I often think that people outside of Highland Park, but reasonably close by, feel like they're part of Highland Park too, or they know our community. You don't have to be a Highland Parker to know the Highland Park community. And anyway, that's my feeling, that it's safer, more objective, not to have anybody who's a
Mayor, can I
resident.
just note, right now, there is no residency requirement. It just happens to be a resident.
Yeah.
So to your point, you could choose, when you choose when this one is currently out, there just is no current residency requirement.
And recognizing that corporation counsel is many people. There are like 9 or 10 people that end up doing the work for the city of Highland Park. They are all corporation
Oh,
counsel.
no, I was talking about the administrative hearing officer.
Right, but you are saying, from what I'm hearing, you want no Highland Park resident involved at either role.
I feel that seems safer to me.
And I understand that bright
Yeah.
line that you're trying to set, but
Yeah.
I guess my question is, so if Marcus Martinez wanted to, or was available, but he's still part of corporation counsel, I'm trying to understand sort
Yeah.
of where that line is.
Perhaps, I think I'd be more comfortable with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so corporation counsel, just not corporation
Thank you
counsel
for that
Steve Elrod, who
distinction,
lives
yeah.
in Highland Park,
Yeah.
but, okay, I don't think anybody else lives in Highland Park who works
Nope.
from your team. Yeah, so pretty much anybody but Steve. Okay, and then AHO would be somebody, not the current person who lives in Highland Park, but a second one.
yeah.
Okay, but you're still comfortable with corporation counsel and administrative hearing officers serving in these roles so long as they are not Highland Park residents?
Well, I think that it's an interesting point that Steve raised about, I guess, Evanston, that it's not as clear cut that you'd have attorney-client privilege. So that does sway me. I assume, because I feel like, you know, any removal from direct involvement in the city seems like a safer thing, but I understand that point, and I wouldn't want that to be compromised.
So let me circle back one more time. So Corporation Counsel
I think
would be preserving that attorney.
that reason, attorney-client privilege, and if it's sort of locked in that we know that exists, that is absolutely a good thing. But the residency issue bothers me.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Oops, where's my list? Kim, you are next.
Thanks. I'm comfortable with the way this has been laid out, and I trust the Corporation Counsel and his ability to remain neutral or to tell us if he can't, and same with the administrative hearing officer, so I'm okay with if they're Highland Park residents. There was a question in the packet, I don't know if we're onto this or not, about whether it should be available for just city council or also for board and commission members. But because the ethics guidelines apply to board and commission members, I would open it to them as well, this process.
Do you feel that way? Yep, Tony, yeah, okay.
And I like calling it an ethics advisor rather than ombudsman. I think that's more appropriate.
Okay, great, thank you. Annette?
Did I hit all the questions?
Most of them. If not, we'll circle back.
I'd say what most of them said, but I think I'll go through it specifically too. I like the idea of ethics advisor and basically officer. I like the word ethics in both of it. I view this as a very, first of all, I like the idea of people on our council or people who serve the city feeling confident that they can speak to someone and have attorney-client privilege. At first, I did not like the idea of Corporation Counsel doing it, but with a two-layered effect, I think we kind of get the best of both worlds, because we could keep it personal, we could keep it kind of at home, so that people could feel more comfortable, rather than, oh, this is a big step. I'm going to see an attorney about something. I want advice. And we keep costs down. And I think to Councilmember Patapia's point about not creating a structure or a process that's new, I really like the idea of the first level, where it's really on a personal level. Hey, Corporation Counsel, what do you think? This is the situation I'm in. And frankly, I think that that's the service you provided to Councilmember Hoopler. In the beginning, I think that really worked very, very well. So I think that starting there is great, but I like the safeguard of having the external, and to me the external is more about someone who's not associated with the city in any way, shape, or form, so that there's another level and that adjudication is actually occurring. I like the idea of the initial step, any opinion that might be written, being used not to be determinative, but to be helpful in terms of the advice that was sought and clarity. So I think it's a really good way to begin. I do want to say that I know that several of you, Councilmember Blumberg, Corporation Counsel, I know you've put in some hours already looking at this type of ethics review beyond what was done in our meeting before, and I want to thank everybody for their efforts along those lines. I think that it's important that we're moving in this way, and for clarification, because I think there have been a lot of questions as to where does the responsibility remain or begin, and now we will have more of an upfront approach when it goes, God forbid, to an adjudication officer. I brought that up at our last meeting, and I think that, and again, it is person-specific and it's Highland Park-specific. I think that's a really good thing. I don't think people in Glencoe know what's going on in our town or the way our town operates and what our core values are and how much we've gone to this. And people who are at our meetings, whether they're as staff liaisons, council liaisons, who've worked on these issues, I think that community people bring a lot, but I do like the hopeful, not necessary, but the ability to have someone from the outside if there's a conflict. Because a lot of this really is about conflict. So to me, I like starting soft. I used to do a lot of employment law, and the first step in HR was to make people feel comfortable and make them feel like they could turn to us. So if someone from BDAG has an issue, and I agree with you, Councilmember Stone, that I think it's important that all our advisors and our commissioners and our elected officials and staff have a place where they can feel that they have attorney-client privilege and they can get an opinion on their behavior or moving forward, what their role could be or should not be. And then, if God forbid we need it, there's an adjudication process. We have that for residents now. And frankly, and I don't mean to keep touting the current person who's in there, but I like their arm's length objectivity, legal background, again, so that there's knowledge there. And so, to me, it's a really good setup and a good proposal. I'm very pleased with it. And I like the intimacy of it in that we are one community. We're trying to keep it informal. But if it goes beyond that, we have someone who's arm's length, who might know our community or not. And if they do, if there's any question of conflict, we have an outside person too.
And are others comfortable with staff as well? Yeah, yeah, okay. Andres and then Yumi.
Yeah, since this discussion about residency has come up and there's different points of view, either way, I think we need to have a point of view, right? But right now we have by default, we have somebody who's a Highland Park resident, and this person happens to be doing a good job. But I would like to propose that, whenever this person moves on, that it be a Highland Park resident, again, by requirement, because of the intimacy and the knowledge of the city, but as a check and balance, is that the second person be, by requirement,
Non-resident.
outside.
Okay.
But I think it's a good moment to bring it up, because we just have an incumbent who happens to be a resident, but I think we need to have a point of view, is that necessary or not? And we have different points of view here, but I just want to advocate for having it be a resident.
Okay, thank you. Yumi?
And I truly don't mean to put Corporation Counsel on the spot here to ask that would Corporation Counsel feel more empowered with this, with this structure to opine on things that I feel like sometimes you've felt not comfortable opining on?
Well, if I may.
Sure.
It wasn't never a matter of comfort, it was a matter of authority. I didn't have the authority. I don't have the authority under the existing code. There is not. People would call me and I would, as a advisor, as your lawyer, give my thoughts, but I had no actual authority. If that authority were written in, yes, there would have a greater comfort level. That comfort would also be tempered knowing that it's got a check on top of it. That if somebody disagrees with me, there would be an outlet for that disagreement to be vetted. So it would very much, it would be a
Yes.
change. The answer to your question is actually yes. And I do want you to understand, because if anyone felt that I was avoiding, for purposes of my knowledge or relationship or proximity and geography to, although I don't live very close, but it was never because it was never because I felt discomfortable. I would tell somebody, any one of you or any one of your predecessors, directly to their face, I think you should not, or I think you should. But I would only be able to say that's just my own thought.
And I want to say that it was not, not that you were suggesting that I was saying that this, but I have utmost faith in your, and Corporation Council's, all of you, your integrity, and, you know, faithfulness to service to Highland Park. I simply wondered if it gave you more authority.
It would be better for your corporation counsel, whoever that may be.
Okay, thank you.
Great, okay. Tony?
A couple of quick questions. First of all, I assume we're going to be having other discussions about the ethics code after today. We're just trying to figure out what we're gonna do.
Enforcement prong.
Right.
Okay. Second is, with respect to enforcement, so, where we have, an ethics advisor, and it proceeds to the next step of enforcement. I'm not quite sure what that's gonna look like, and whether, because for instance, right now in front of the administrative hearing officer, cases are prosecuted by Corporation Counsel. So if there's an ethics hearing, what is Corporation Counsel's role as an advisor in that?
There would not be, the Corporation Council, as we indicated, would have, perhaps have issued an opinion, perhaps not, but it would be, you know, the whole point of an ethic, of the administrative hearing officer is that it is not a court of law.
Right.
And it is not something, you don't need to hire a lawyer to attend. It would be the party being challenged, or the party bringing the challenge, and the party being challenged, and they would present their positions to the administrative hearing officer.
Totally.
I don't see the Corporation Council or the manager having a role in that at all.
Great.
But where I thought you were going, and I want to make this clear to everyone, we can't change Illinois law.
Right.
What penalties that administrative hearing officer can ultimately issue are limited. They're fines, penalties. They can't say you are now recused from voting on this
Right.
issue, or you're eliminated from office, or
Sure.
okay.
Right.
But that was one of the questions
Said that
you
last
posed.
time, and I wanted to.
Right. But you posed that in the memo, asking what authority do you have to impose fines and penalties, and talking about censure and reprimands, corrective action. I don't know if you want us to talk about that. I think we need more substance to.
I could
build
fill
that
all
up.
that in.
Yeah.
I just want you to know where it will end.
Okay,
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the process and
Yeah.
everybody's role with
course.
relation to everybody else. I'm totally comfortable with this. I also support what Andres' Councilmember Tapia has suggested in terms of who's gonna fulfill those roles
layers, yeah.
with respect to the administrative hearing officer, that the first one be a Highland Park resident and the second one not be.
yeah, I think
I
that's
think that's a great idea.
absolutely good balance. Okay, thank you for putting this together and
My
the
pleasure.
opportunity to have this conversation. Go for it, you betcha.
I like the idea very much about a final report and an annual report, and I think that certainly in the short term, it should be a report to the city council in whole, if we move forward with this, so I thought that was important. Penalties and fines, again, I think we should have reports back. And as far as initiating, I think that that's something we need to go further on, because in my estimation, the same way it works with the adjudication right now, I think that anyone who's a resident and 18 or older should be permitted to be able to bring, if they have a problem with it, a claim.
So that's broadening it, or are you saying simply a claim against an elected or a commission member or a staff member,
Yeah.
but not against your next door neighbor?
No, no,
Okay.
no.
Want to be very clear.
Yes,
Because,
that's a good clarification.
yeah,
Man,
Yes.
just to tie a loose end, you know, I'm the one that kept coming back to the place a couple weeks ago that the current situation had us end up in a dead end. So this sort of solves that dilemma, right? Because now we don't have a dead end, we actually have a place to, a recourse and where to go, and we're clear about that. So I'm glad that we are doing this work.
okay.
Mayor, I think, since it's changed so much since this outline, may I recommend that you give me the ability, manager, to revise the outline based
Sure.
on what I believe I heard from today, and just get it back to you in another outline form.
Absolutely. Kim?
flow chart might be a useful part of
I
it.
I agree, like a
That's good.
decision tree kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah,
With an org chart too,
Yeah.
somebody may like that.
yeah.
That's great.
Andres, it's like
I don't wanna
word
make
chart,
it more
yes.
difficult, but that's
Yeah.
great.
I got that.
Okay, do we have time to talk about Enjoy HP marketing?
We do not, so we can hold that one to the next meeting.
Okay, and let me just ask you this, and not to diminish that presentation, is that something that could be sent to everybody via email?
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't we
Yeah,
save time
absolutely. Sure.
and just have
Okay.
that report sent to us by email? Yes, Yumi?
I would like to discuss that report. So are you saying not to have a discussion about it?
I kind of am, but if there's stuff you want to talk about, we can certainly have it on another agenda.
I don't know if I'm alone in feeling that way, but I feel like there's
No,
more
I
to.
agree, but I think we should do it on another agenda.
Another day, sure,
Okay,
but yeah, thank you.
okay.
To send you the PowerPoint and then get feedback?
I think that'd be great.
That way you at least can,
I mean,
see,
Yeah,
it may
and
answer your
prepare
questions.
for it, and maybe we can shorten the
Right.
conversation.
Sure.
Yeah,
Unless you want us to just send you our notes or opinions, I don't know.
well,
We
How
can
much
send you
would-
the PowerPoint, and then if it answers all your questions, great. If it
Would-
doesn't, you wanna have a public
I
conversation.
mean,
we can
there
schedule it.
are points that, or things that I wanted to bring up that I feel like I would like everybody else's take on, and
That's
this is the
fine.
only way
Yeah.
to do it.
Absolutely, so we can have it at another
Yeah.
committee of the whole. But I think sending the PowerPoint might help shrink some of the time necessary.
Yeah.
And that way, then it's just a
Sure.
matter of questions versus the presentation, which we appreciate, but we continue to have more things that are coming on the committee of the whole as well. So I don't want you to feel like you're playing catch-up or short shrifting something. Okay, does that make sense? So
Yeah.
we'll still have all the
Still have
content,
Yeah.
opportunity for discussion and questions, but maybe not have the 10-minute
This-
presentation.
We've got the OMA, and this, we can openly talk
1,000%,
here.
you bet. Okay. So with that, Steve, we are recessing because we will be coming back for closed,
No,
right? No.
it's closed is, you're adjourning, because closed is under city council.
Gotcha. You have it here on committee of the whole. I just wanted you to know.
That's a
It's
placeholder
a
that,
placeholder on both.
Ah,
Yeah.
Okay, so seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
I
thanks.
don't like that placeholder.